everyone's talking about elections this year, and who else better than two directors of elections, registrars, to tell us what's happening in the Commonwealth of Virginia. There's a great deal of national news. Some of it may be confusing to people in Virginia, some would be helpful. But regardless of that, you're going to hear from Allison Robbins, who's the president of the Voter Registrars Association of Virginia in Wise County, and Walt Latham, the immediate past president of the association, who's from York County. And we're delighted to hear from you all, and I've got a list of questions, and I'll make sure we get to all of them. But let me start off with a very general one about what's new in Virginia in 2020 as we approach the November election. What's new? Allison, as the president, we'll defer to you to start, and then Walt, you jump in, and I'll jump back in when you all are ready for me to talk some more.
Well, David, the biggest thing that's new this year is our early voting has finally come to Virginia. And so Virginia is going to have 45 days of early, no excuse absentee voting. So what this means for voters is that you will be able to go to your registrar's office beginning this Friday, September the 18th through October the 31st and vote early in person without providing any kind of excuse or qualifying information.
And Allison, if I could follow up on that, when you go in to vote, you probably wouldn't be using a paper absentee ballot, would you? Would you be actually using one of the machines?
You will be using a paper optical scan ballot in any jurisdiction in Virginia that will be run through an optical scan voting machine.
Right. Well, I guess I didn't ask my question that clearly. It won't be an absentee ballot per se that you do.
No, it will be an in-person vote just like on election day.
Yes.
You will fill out your paper ballot and run it through the voting machine just like you do on election day.
Yes. Thank you, Walt. What else is new in 2020 in the Commonwealth?
That's pretty much the biggest thing. We also have a recently enacted change to allow drop-off locations and a curing process for absentee ballots and prepaid postage. People will have their return mail paid for unless they're using a domestic service in another country. And then people can also mail their ballots back as long as they're postmarked on election day, November 3rd. Previously, they had to be into the office with the registrar by 7 p.m. on election night. Now you just have to have it postmarked by election day, and then we have to have it by noon 3 days later. Those are probably the biggest changes that voters will experience.
Okay, you mentioned something, and we've heard this language here around the Capitol, curing the ballot. What is, break that down a little bit for us. What does it mean to cure a ballot?
Well, this year that is kind of probably a loaded term. A lot of people are dealing with a pandemic, so a cure sounds like a really good thing.
Right.
With an absentee ballot, sometimes when people return ballots to us, they end up having to be rejected. I can't speak for all localities in the state. I think Virginia generally has a relatively low rejection rate. I've heard of some rates in other states, like 20% in one place, and I've never heard of that in Virginia. Can't say it's never happened, but people will return their ballots and they won't have a witness signature, which is not required for this election, or they won't have signed the ballot themselves, or they didn't provide an address or something like that. Well, curing of the ballot means that we will be able to let the voter know, hey, you didn't do something right, and so your ballot doesn't get rejected. This is what you need to do to fix it.
Okay, thank you. And Allison, let me come back to you. Walt said something about drop boxes. So tell us what's meant by a drop box.
Well, the most recent legislation from the General Assembly during the special session allows for what the language in the code will say is a drop-off location. So any voter who has received an absentee ballot through the mail will be able to drop their ballot off at any in-person voting location, whether it be the registrar's office or a satellite voting location or to the polls on election day, and they will be able to drop their ballot off and leave it without being checked in or having to meet with the registrar.
Well, thank you. I was reading this morning a very good article, but I think it had one mistake in it. It said something about registrars may provide drop boxes, and I pulled out what was passed in the General Assembly, and it has a shall. It says that you shall at your office, and you shall at any other office you're using. You may, I think it says, provide others if you chose to.
Yeah, the language in the law allows for the general registrar to provide additional drop-off locations throughout their locality. And the state has provided us with security information to ensure that any drop-off locations that are established are secure and monitored.
And this is really new for Virginia, not new in maybe 30 other states or some other number of states, but it's really new in the Commonwealth.
It is. Previous to this, we were only allowed to take a ballot in person from a voter, or the voter had to return the ballot through either postal mail or a commercial delivery service. So a drop-off location and drop boxes are new to Virginia.
Yeah. And I think you two correct me, but the primary reason that the General Assembly went to this was really in this COVID-19 time, and it's in the budget, so it's not a permanent change as of yet, at least. It's just a temporary change that affects us, certainly the November election.
Yeah, it's only applicable for the November 3rd election currently. So the General Assembly would have to enact additional legislation at a later time to make it a permanent change. But considering the unprecedented numbers that we've seen for by-mail absentee voting, Virginia is drawing close to 1 million absentee ballots through the mail that are going to be mailed out starting this Friday, September the 18th.
Now, Walt, coming back to you on these drop boxes for just a moment, I was reading in one of the articles today that some of them are almost like a cardboard box with someone standing there. What's going to be happening in York County? What are you able to provide to the voters?
Well, we bought some boxes that can be locked, and we're supposed to get 4 of them tomorrow. We're going to have 2 at each location, 1 out at any given time, so that we can rotate 1 out. If it starts getting filled up, we can put another 1 out, and voters can come in and use that. It says ballot box on the side. And the code is, the budget amendment is very, as Allison said, it doesn't actually even use the phrase drop or the term drop box. It refers to drop off location. But in order to have a secure place to put it, we bought these boxes. So we felt like we found a good price and something that would be a good match for the county, that was handicap accessible and easy for people to use and understand what it's for, and suitable for the purpose. We haven't invested. We may get something more permanent at some point, or we may find these to be suitable. As Allison said, this is only for November 3rd. And so we were wary of making a commitment of many thousands of dollars because we don't know what the General Assembly and other places have made larger commitments. But the concern I had was getting something that might not meet a requirement of the General Assembly in next year's session. If they say, hey, we want it to be twice the size of what we'd gotten, well, then we have to go buy more ballot boxes or drop boxes. And as you can imagine, it's not like there's an aftermarket for drop boxes somewhere. So we don't want to, spend $10,000, $20,000 on drop boxes that aren't suitable for purpose next year. So if the General Assembly reenacts it, hopefully we'll have a better idea of what we're investing in, so that we're also suitable stewards of taxpayer dollars.
Thank you. And Allison, what's going to be happening in Wise County? And maybe you're hearing from your colleagues in other localities as well.
In Wise County, we are much like York County. We have purchased ballot boxes that are lockable and securable that will be located at all in-person voting locations in Wise County, which is the registrar's office. a satellite location that will be opening in October, and of course all election day polling places, and those will be clearly marked and identifiable. They will be secured by observation of election officials and registrar staff at all times, and voters can come in and simply drop their ballot off at those locations. And around the state, it's similar to what Walt described. There's a lot of localities that are purchasing securable ballot boxes to be able to locate inside of in-person voting locations. And there are several localities that are establishing a more permanent outdoor drop box, which is required to be under video surveillance 24 hours a day. So for those localities that are purchasing the outside drop box, they're going to be under video surveillance at all times.
Excellent. Let me ask you and ask Walt too about something about this mail that I got from the United States Postal Service. I don't think I've ever gotten something like this. It says, "Dear postal customer, if you vote by mail, we're going to provide you a secure way to deliver your ballot." And they have a little checklist on it. I understand that the Secretary of State, as it may be called in Colorado, got really upset about this because of some of the information, but I'm sure you all have seen these and people have asked you about them. Is the information, if you've had a chance to look at these, is the information okay in the Commonwealth of Virginia about what it says?
I don't know about Allison, but that's probably the only election mail that I have not had people ask me about.
Oh, wow. Okay. Alice, have they asked you anything about this one?
My household received one of those, and I'm much like you. That was the first time the Postal Service had ever told me to vote. But from what I did read on it when we got it, it seemed to be good information for Commonwealth voters. If you are interested in voting by mail, or you feel like you need to vote by mail because of health concerns or the pandemic or even travel, we would encourage you to apply as early as you know that you need to vote by mail, and as soon as you receive your ballot to vote it and send it back to us as quickly as you can, so that we can ensure that we get it in a timely manner and your vote can count. And I think that's what the Postal Service was trying to do. And for Virginia voters, it was sufficient information to encourage them to vote.
Yeah, I don't want to confuse our viewers, but I will say this, that I think in Colorado, the problem was they mail ballots out, and the information on here says, if you apply, we will send you a ballot. So that was some of the confusion there in Colorado and a few other states where they mail ballots out, but we don't do that in Virginia.
Yeah, David, to go back to a previous topic, in Virginia, we have 45 days of by-mail voting, but you can apply as early as January of the calendar year. So we will begin mailing ballots to all voters who have so far requested an absentee ballot through the mail on September the 18th. So we would encourage everyone who wishes to vote by mail to go ahead and apply, and they can do that either through contacting their local registrar to receive an application, or they can do so on the Department of Elections website.
Walt, what's happening in your jurisdiction and other ones that you're hearing from too? Have there been lots of requests already for absentee ballots? We've heard all kinds of speculations, and you all have had speculations too about how many people may be voting absentee. But as Allison was just saying, people probably have already started applying to receive one. What's the word down in York County?
Well, 4 years ago, we had about 3,600 people or votes cast in person and by mail to combined absentee. So far, we are about at 6,500 to 7,000 requests just for our initial mailing for by mail absentee ballots. So there's been a lot of interest. When I did some math the other day, I think it came out to about like 13.48% of the county's voters have requested a ballot that will be mailed out in the first shipment. So that's a pretty strong turnout so far. Much more than we've ever had in an initial mailing, at least since I've been here.
And are you having a similar kind of request percentage-wise, Allison?
We are. We have a very high percentage of requests. In 2016, we voted just over 600 voters by mail for the entire 2016 election, and in our first mailing, we're already over 1,200 ballots requested. So we're looking at probably seeing a few hundred more come in between now and Friday. So there's a very high percentage for Wise County.
And when we talk about Friday, we're talking about September the 18th.
Yes, September.
And the lines may start forming of people who want to vote in person early.
Yes, we fully expect a good turnout on September the 18th. And just as a reminder, September 18th is the first day to vote early, but early voting will last all the way through Saturday, October the 31st.
If I were going to be in my home jurisdiction, I would be out there just curiosity, checking out the numbers, but I am coming your way. I'm going to be at the Moonlight Drive-In Theater in Abingdon to see the Barter Theater with an outdoor production. And that's going to be exciting, but I'll be most interested in seeing what's happening in Washington County, where I will be, about our people lining up to vote, who want to go ahead and vote. So before we wrap it up, there's probably something else. As you said, I thought surely David was going to be asking me about this, but he failed to do so. What are the comments you would have? And then especially, I'd like for you to make some comments about what's your message to the people out in the Commonwealth about what they need to be doing if they intend to vote. So first, something I left out that you want to add in, Walt or Allison?
Well, David, I'd just remind voters that in Virginia this year, voters have 3 ways in which to choose to vote. They can either vote by mail, absentee ballot, which does require a absentee application to be submitted. They can vote early in person, again starting this Friday, September the 18th, or all regular polling places on election day will be open from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. as has been the traditional election day hours in Virginia. So Virginia voters do have the 3 options available to them. The voter registration deadline is October the 13th. So anyone who has any concerns about their voter registration, needs to register to vote, has recently moved or had a name change, they have until October the 13th to effect that change. And we encourage them to contact their local registrar or to go online at elections.virginia.gov to update their voter registration or request an absentee ballot through the mail.
Thank you. Walt?
I would say don't delay. If you want to vote, go in and apply. If you want to vote by mail, if you want to vote in person, make your plan of when you're going to do it. You don't have to do it September 18th. If everyone shows up September 18th, I'm not trying to discourage anyone from showing up, but if everyone shows up September 18th, then you're going to have a wait. There's no reason for, 5-hour waits. If you don't have to be there September 18th. We'll be there next week after that. We'll be there the week after that. There will be plenty of time. We'll be open the final 2 Saturdays before the election for people to come by and vote. So just make your plan, find out what the hours and locations are in your county or city, and then make sure you get out and vote.
Allison Robbins, Walt Langford, thank you both very much for being on This Week in Virginia and for talking about voting in the Commonwealth of Virginia in 2020. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
and thank you, David, and congratulations on your new show.